So hello, welcome and good morning. Hope we all had a nice Easter break. And my name is Balbir Singh, Artistic Director of Balbir Singh Dance Company. We're here in the lovely Yorkshire Dance building, and we're speaking for PiPA today as a case study, which is wonderful to do. And thank you for Eleanor for inviting us on board to talk. And I want to introduce Bobak Champion, who is a wonderful creative, an artist, a dancer, a maker of work, and also a self-producer, just as a case study to talk a little bit about his experience of who he is artistically and the impact of having a child and the benefits, the challenges artistically, to demonstrate as a case study for people to get an insight, but also understand a little bit more about what PiPA are about and potentially engage as well in whatever capacity as such. So Bobak, thank you so much. Welcome to coming along today. So it would be nice for the audience, for the viewers out there, just to hear a little bit about who you are, your practice, your craft as an artist.
Right, yeah, well, thanks very much for having me, Balbir, and for having us. Actually, this is little Mina as well, so we're going to try and do best we can, but then we might get the odd distraction, right? Because it's about you sometimes. But yeah, so my name is Bobak Champion, and I'm a freelance dance artist, theatre maker, and yeah, so dance originally is what got me into the arts. You will remember the show Top of the Pops many years ago. I saw a video on that really inspired me to take that pathway and look into hip hop, specifically breaking dance style, which I found at my local dance centre in Bristol. And so that led me to study contemporary dance at the Northern School of Contemporary Dance. And luckily I've been busy ever since graduating back in 2004, up. And that has been in all sorts of settings. So that's taken me on a really interesting, exciting journey in, higher education institutes, young offenders institutes, prisons, old people's homes, doing early years work, working on some really fantastic community projects with some big name choreographers, going on tour with several dance companies, having my own breaking troupe, doing commercial jobs, so like everything from bar mitzvahs to parties and that type of thing as well. Yeah, so I've also done other commercial jobs of choreograph for Bench Clothing, Phones for You, yeah, all sorts. So I'm straddling that kind of commercial and community education work, but then this was mainly for other organizations, and which was great, including Breaking Traditions and Demon Barbers, which was fantastic. But through all of this, I've got an Iranian heritage. My mum was born in Iran, and the kind of message that was being portrayed about Muslims, about the Middle East, was a growing concern to me. So it was in the corner of my mind. But with the Trump Muslim ban, and with things that were coming out from his government in the media, it was just getting more and more worrying, and like kind of made me go through a bit of a depressed, angry, annoyed kind of state at first, and then but that kind of frustration just grew to the point where I was like, right, actually, now's the time for me to go and start making my own work. And this is about 3 years ago now. And as because you popped into the studio as that process was happening. But and thanks to yourself and other peers, the feedback was, yeah, you're on the right lines here, you're onto something. So I've carried on that journey, and that's been really exciting for me, and it's been really well received in the dance community with my peers. So yeah, I'm on that journey of making work that kind of tackles Islamophobia, makes a different conversation, shows a different light on the Middle East. And I'm not trying, and they're quite dark, heavy, important subjects, but as you'll attest, I use humor a lot to try and portray that as well, because I think that's an important tool and it's a way to get on board. So yeah, trying to connect that, like, instead of them and us and that other, just humanizing people, bringing it in. I'm not trying to say the world's perfect. I'm not saying Iran's perfect. It's like everywhere else. It has its problems and things, but I'm just trying to maybe offer a different narrative.
Great. Yeah, that's fantastic. Lovely. So the work that I saw was great, and it's nice to see how you self-produce and it's developed and grown, and we'll be going out on tour soon. So that's fantastic. So well done with that. And having a child, Mina, I have 2 children, and my perspective on the world just totally changed. My firstborn was me and my daughter, and seeing the world from a female perspective just shifted everything in my mind, with how I viewed the world and understood the world through her eyes, and how that informed me artistically with a lot of the work that I make as well. Having a child then, has it made any difference to you with how you make sense of the world, who you are as a human, as an artist, how you approach your craft?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I still think that's still in process now as well. Some of that I'm only figuring out, I'm only considering, now even. But it is a really interesting question. And I should say, that she was born in lockdown as well. So just as a starting point, like we were just having a conversation off camera earlier, that it is a really great place to like bring barriers down and things. So just straight off the bat, that's been amazing to see people that I wouldn't necessarily talk to, or like we've all got neighbours that we get on with, some that we don't, and just seeing those barriers broken down is amazing. But in terms of the shift, and I think before even Mina arrived on the scene, I would like to consider myself somewhat of a feminist, or I'm interested in that, and I'm thinking a little bit about that. But that's maybe different within my peer groups and other artists I know, because and also as a hip hop fan, a lot of the lyrics and things are misogynistic, and a lot of the artists that are out there putting work out, if I'm teaching and things, I've got to think about what music I'm using, and it really makes you think. And even from obvious gangster rappers who are using the B word and you think, no, what about someone a bit more funky and wholesome like James Brown, for instance, who was an advocate of Afro-American, culture and things, but at the same time he was beating his wife, So there is a bit of a minefield out there. So it does make you think, and it makes you realise it's important what you do. So I think I am a bit more like, it's on the radar. Okay, what female artists, especially within the hip hop genre, are like, doing something that I think is a positive message. And it is different as well, because previous to Mina, I might have thought about those kind of things in terms of women's rights, but then I think actually in terms of education, young people coming up, the kind of people that young people I might interact with, it's a different importance again. So yes, but also, yeah, I'm still figuring it out. And also reading materials, I think we're fortunate now to have some more decent options to choose from in terms of authors and kids' books and things like that, which is important. Just even things like how we decide to talk about our bodies and things like that. I feel like I don't want to speak to too many women, but I understand that that it's so normal to get whether it's a wolf whistle in the street or something more serious. That these things are so common. So I think just like vocabulary and things, I found this one book where it just talks about, it uses the word anus, it uses the word vulva, it's very forthright, and it's as well as shoulder, head, knees and toes, but it very clearly goes through the body. So we are trying to both me and my wife are trying to educate Mina and things like that, and try and use the vocabulary that we think is empowering, that we think is correct and educational. So those are some of that's at the beginning of a long answer or an essay, I imagine, to that question. I don't know if you've got any thoughts or you, from your experience, or
I guess I made a work called the Strategist, which was about female rugby players, and the challenges and the struggles of the world of female rugby. And where that came from was my daughter in mid-teens saying it's quite hard being female, and at that point she was getting quite was going through a rough patch at school with some derogatory remarks from males, chauvinistic remarks. And so that kind of planted the thought in my head, actually a work to empower people. And in the making of that work, my initial thought is always at the start of a process, what do I want an audience coming out of this thinking and feeling? And what I had in mind was for people to feel confident and empowered to overcome challenge, to ignore whatever challenges they are facing or prejudice as such. So whilst the work was about female rugby, for me it was very much about, it could be anything. It's just a vehicle for people where they're struggling to have a sense of inspiration and confidence and feel strong in themselves to overcome or stay positive against those things. And so that conversation with my daughter fed into my thinking about what the purpose of that work was beyond the subject matter of rugby and female rugby. So and children, you learn so much from children and those perspectives a little bit, and the importance of the work in that sense. And for me, taking on more of an environmental theme now with work in terms of future generations and what we need to do to preserve and protect and reverse climate change is key and essential, and how that feeds into our relationship with the environment and understanding of how we connect with the environment and value and also inform others to engage with it in a more effective, protective way is key in terms of future generations. And so being a father puts you in those positions of automatic responsibility a little bit, to think we need to protect the environment for these future generations. And so how we as artists can use the arts to promote and educate and inform and open up conversation through our skills and tools as creatives. So that they're very much so for me.
That's really interesting. And I have heard that from other people, that even people who are active throughout their young lives, they reach teenagehood and there's a certain attitude in schools towards PE, especially for teenage girls. So having made a work like that, what as dance artists can we do to like push through that? And it'll be interesting to see what her attitude and her classmates are like when she turns 13.
And Bobak, in terms of children in the workplace, what's your experience of
children in the workplace? Yeah, I mean, that's like still a navigation. And even if I'm perfectly honest about today's conversation, I was 50-50 as to whether, you know, with her and things like that. And then in the end, I was like, this is so ironic. You know, how can I possibly miss out on an opportunity or a conversation about, you know, kids in the workplace or being a parent because I'm a parent and things. So we thought, so yeah, it's interesting because it's something before she came along, I just hadn't really thought things through. I don't know what people's policies are. I don't, you know, and yeah, it is very interesting. And I guess, you know, one thing you go on, you know, it isn't even a policy. You just, first of all, you know, one thought might be, okay, is the organisation that I'm meeting, who's a parent there? Just because that, which is an odd way to think about it. So people are having parents later, being parents later and later. So, you know, and not to say if they're not a parent, they're going to be against it or they can't handle it. But it's just like, yeah, the starting point is wide open, and I try and just gauge things. And I don't know what the etiquette is as well. I really have no idea if it's like, even asking if I can bring a young person into a meeting is a done thing or not. I've got no idea. And sometimes I will try for a specific time, try my best to wear her out and hope that she's going to sleep through this meeting, which sometimes has been fine, or I'll caveat it. But I do try and, in the end, with yourself, I just picked up the phone, you know, why don't I just gauge it and have a chat and see how people react, and that seems to be working out all right. But I'll caveat it and say, look, hey, if we can have this meeting and I bring Mina, hopefully we'll be able to communicate what we need. If not, could we do a catch up later on? You know, there's a chance that it won't work and it'll be difficult, in which case we'll need to reschedule on Zoom. But so far it's been good, and I think, you know, because presumably not everyone's bringing a child into their meeting, I think it's quite nice for people in some respects if they've just been on Zoom in the desk, you know. And again, I'm quite, after everything being online, I'm quite keen to meet in person, so that will always be my first choice. So, you know, I think at least picking up the phone and having those conversations with people and just trying to gauge it. Mina, yeah, you've been to some meetings. Here you are now. Yeah, so we have to dedicate a bit of time to the young ones as well, but hopefully we can still do it. What other? So I think, yeah, but it is very difficult to guess. So I don't know how people would, but maybe that's the one. If you are running an organisation, how do you make it clear? You know, like people have their genders now on their pronouns on their email. You know, because I think certain people want to make their organisations child friendly, but what does that mean? Or even knowing that, you know, if I heard somewhere or read somewhere we're trying to be a, then I might be more. So I think there's a lot of work to do, but yeah, I've been having those kind of conversations, and yeah.
And in the workplace, for example, watching Daddy at work, do you think there's a growth and a development and an engagement with what's going on there, and just a cultural exposure?
Yeah, and actually, I think, you know, we were talking about Verve earlier at the Northern School, and so lots of students there, some of them international things, and actually, I just think culturally mixing between different ages is really good, and that's what I've experienced in the community work. But I just think in Spain sometimes, or in other European countries, it's much more normal to just, like, even not just at work, but in socially, you go out to a bar or a restaurant or something, and I feel like it's more common to see, even late into the night, young people with older people, with you know, all the different groups. So actually, it's not just a benefit to me if I'm coming in with her. I think it's nice for students to see that role model of how a family might operate, or you know, not having to do things separately and rely on childcare. So Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's potentially a two-way thing.
And having a child and sleep and energy levels, have you got a balance between having a child and dedicating time and energy levels and headspace to stay creatively focused?
Well, that's a really interesting question, and especially for I guess people that are looking to start a family and things. I think that you are going to have less of all those things essentially, but I do feel like it gives you more drive, and you start to think about how you can use those moments more wisely. So that's sometimes I'm admittedly so exhausted. If she has an afternoon nap, I need to nap as well. But other times, actually, in an hour or two, what would have taken me half a day before or a whole day, I can actually. I don't know. It gives you more. That's the like positive thing. I don't know if you experienced that as well. Actually, the time that you are given, or the time that she goes to nursery now 2 days a week, and those 2 days are much more efficiently used and utilised. So that's like a positive. But I mean, for us, it is honestly a struggle because we don't have family around the corner as well. I know some people are able to utilise grandparents that are close by. Me and my partner both don't have that. So yeah, it isn't always easy. So I do really appreciate when I can take her along to places, and luckily she's been quite good. Although I was saying she's challenging at night time, during the day she does seem to want to play ball and let Bubba work.
And transportation, I saw you at one time on a bike.
Yes,
the little one,
yeah.
So
and I have to say, and again, that's like I have to say we're a bit more fair weather with it as well. So we didn't in the winter, but actually, just as soon as we had those storms, didn't we, this year? One after, I can't remember what they were called. There was a different name every day for these storms. But once they passed, I had that first ride back on the bike and realised that she absolutely loved it, and I really liked it. And actually, within a lot of my work at the minute is mainly within Leeds. If I'm going over to Bradford, I'm not going to cycle at the moment with her on the back. Let's see. Maybe I need some electric assistance. But yeah, getting around Leeds, certainly. Even here today, it's nice that I can bring the bicycle into the building as well. Just little things like that I think some organisations don't even do purposely necessarily, but just knowing that, okay, I don't have to worry about security or the bike getting wet or nicked or anything like that. So these little things make a difference to me as well, especially when we're on the bike. And yeah, she really gets on with it. I tested it out yesterday. It was a bank holiday, so let's go for a long ride, because napping, will she be able to actually nap on the back? But I figured out that I can lower this bike seat so that she can sleep back, and I don't have to, so I can carry on if I want to go further. But we have got a buggy sometimes as well, so sometimes that, again, if she needs to sleep in a meeting or something like that, I've taken the buggy into Northern before. Yeah. I mean, I think with one, so far it's manageable. Still, I can't speak for anyone that's got 2 or 3 children. It must be more challenging still, and it's probably harder to keep working in that way.
Great.
Yeah.
And to just open it out to the audience, I don't know if anyone here has a particular question.
So I was just thinking, you mentioned one thing that organisations could do, which is just publicising the fact that they want to be a child-friendly organisation. That seems like a really good idea. I was wondering if you've got any other ideas. You're in that stage with a quite young child at the moment. Is there anything that particularly springs to mind that would make places more welcoming for you as a parent and her as a little one?
Yeah, no, I think hearing that's good as well, because you've got to respect the fact that some people aren't interested in children and don't want that as well. So you that is in the back of your mind. So just as soon as you see something to the contrary, and I'm in some social situations or non-work situations where people don't want to have kids, they're not interested in youth work, so kind of respect that. But on the flip side, yeah, just seeing anything written in, maybe it could be in the bottom of someone's email, because actually at the Playhouse, I know, for instance, accessibility, people are making the effort in other areas to have stuff written. So toys and things are really nice, so some reception areas now have little setups, which is good and obvious, but maybe signposting to that. But also a lot of organisations, I do think, have cupboards and cupboards full of exciting stuff, but if you don't know it's there, or you don't know to ask for it. So kindly, she was Mina's been gifted something via Yorkshire Dance recently the other week. That was which was really, really great. And they've got a cupboard here of all sorts of stuff. So I think there's probably a few organisations. That's fine. Okay, you might have your defined set time Saturday club or whatever. Actually, outside of those classes and sessions that are specifically there to be booked onto, if someone's coming like me from the outside to just have a meeting or do some work, if I know that I can grab this box of stuff and leave her in the corner happy, that's really, again, useful if I'm traveling on my bike and I've, if I've got my laptop's this old chunky thing that's quite heavy, if I've got that in, I've got all her, what she needs, you know, snacks wise, as a parent, you'll know that it's quite surprising what they get through. Then if I know that there's some toys already here, then, and it's that classic thing, she gets bored of her own stuff, but as soon as she sees someone else's, even house, like, again, I've been to another dance place where they just, someone's a mum there, so she just got given a stack of cones, you know, these plastic cones, and that's her set for like hours then. So it doesn't even necessarily shoes, yeah, or shoes, could be a phone, hello, hiya, or it could be a shoe. So it doesn't take much, but if we know, and it doesn't even have to be laid out properly, but if we know there's a box of toys there, and that, yeah, that we're welcome to use. I know it was hard in lockdown because things had to be sanitized and things, but also I think that it's now human contact more than touch that we've realized. So hopefully then you can start doing that again, organisations could start doing that again. For those who can't see, I'm just being given my shoes to put back on. So we want to do that here and people can see what we're looking at. Shoes on. But yeah, I think that's a good question. But I think potentially, yeah, the more it's publicised on a website, in people's email signature. Another good point to raise as well with the Arts Council as well. I've started, because cost and money, I think it's an important conversation to have as well. Like, unfortunately, I don't know why, but in this country, you don't get any support until young people are 2 years old, really, from government. So Arts Council now, I think, seem really up on, like, if in my last grant, I did put, like, not to cover all the childcare, but I did write in to that bid a contribution towards the cost of childcare for some of it as well. So that's encouraging, I think.
Any other questions or remarks, comments?
I have one. For future parents, maybe. Oh yes.
Yeah, I'll repeat it as well if you want. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking how was it when you knew you were gonna have a kid? How did you imagine that it was gonna affect your practice, and how it actually affected your practice? The good.
Yeah.
And maybe what are the themes of your artistry that changed maybe after before?
Yeah. So for anyone that didn't catch that, it was a question about, like, knowing that I was about to become a dad, in this case, to start a family. How did it affect my practice, or how do I think it was going to affect it? And that was an interesting one because personally, I just had a lot going on at that time as well. I was moving house and fixing up a space that was going to be suitable as well. So it was this really, like, bomb site that we were, and I knew she was coming. So I kind of, like, and also, I don't know if this is the case for yourself, but I knew that I wasn't going to be, I hustled a lot, I cranked it up, I tell you what, that much. When I knew she was coming, I knew that there was going to be, part of it was choice. Not that I wasn't going to be doing art, but I knew that this was going to take up a lot of my time. So in the build-up, I have to say, I did like 2 years work in one, because I knew the following year was going to be, like, less. And I didn't know how it was going to pan out, to be honest. And I thought I would be doing a lot less than I have done. Like, I thought it was going to be a bit of a write-off, because of the, again, the numbers and the money, because my jobs now have to pay better. Because if you were paying for a day of childcare, then that can just write off the day if it's not a decent job, basically. If the numbers don't match up. So I had a feeling, my wife's got a more regular job and regular income. So there was an argument to say, well, it's not worth me working. Like, that was going to be essentially, you know, I might have done a bit for myself. I kind of written a year off or whatever, but in actual fact, luckily, because I've had this new avenue of work, I'm a bit more determined in what I'm doing. It's not been the case. So I've had, like, certain weeks, but then then it is still a big, if I do get booked, then I have to think, right, how am I going to make this work? And it is, so you have to plan in advance, think a little bit to make sure. But it's one of those things, because also her mum quite rightly wants to know what's going to happen with that childcare. It can't be just something I'm happy with, you know. So it's, you know, even when you pick a nursery, it's like, okay, you can't have the, you know, the nursery of your dreams, but you can't have, you know, one that's too basic or something like that. You both want to make an agreement of it. So just little things that it's quite big. But yeah, I think I went from, like, working ridiculously loads before she arrived, thinking that I was then not going to work essentially do much work. But then luckily, inshallah, that has like changed around a bit, and I am still grafting, and slowly it's getting better as well. And as she gets older, and it's more manageable in the nursery, and then from 2 years on, there'll be government support for that childcare as well, so it'll make it easier again, I think.
In terms of themes or interests?
Yeah, in terms of the artistic themes and things.
Things changed or?
I was really, the thing is, yeah, so before, I think maybe the shift in thinking started not a week before. I guess when it's hard for me to look back on it now, but probably when I was thinking I want to start a family and things, I think maybe the thinking started. But also, you know, as a man, I had a period of life where I was like, I don't know, drinking more, going out, chatting to, you know, trying to chat with women and things like that. And I don't know, I just feel like that part of my life is behind me, and then that is the same. And then you'll start to think about family. So I think probably that part of my life is where my thinking shifted more, and I was more like, yeah, I think it's interesting. Yeah, there's this social culture that happens in hip hop, on the dance floor, and salsa as well. I think it opens up a wider question. Like now, when I know when she's a teenager, how am I going to want her to be treated by a man, or things like that? So it does open up that thinking. But I think it was, yeah, more when I was planning, and I was really impressed by other artists that have been doing that and questioning that as well. So I saw Testament, Andy Brooks. He made a piece called Woke, and he's a big hip hop fan as well, and he was really questioning every record that he listened to. And he made this show as he was having his daughter off. His daughter was born, and I went to see that show like loads of times, man. I was just like, that is a really important question. So I think I've been chewing it over probably more, just in terms of myself, but in terms of when I wanted to start a family. Yeah, but I think it's a really good question. I think, yeah, as a guy in the society we live in as well right now, the daughter, it's even more kind of like, I don't know, pressing. No, you've got a.
I have a daughter who's 20 now and a son
Yeah.
who's 16. So they're kind of out there doing their thing. I'm quite redundant nowadays,
Yeah.
a little bit.
And actually, no, I'll tell you, it has affected the work, because the solo that I made, that's the one I want to take out as well. I specifically, but it's kind of tied in. So I wanted to, like, I just think, especially from the Middle East as well, there's various stereotypes, and I think just like elevating powerful, interesting female stories that aren't just like downtrodden women in headscarves that are like subservient, and just like trying to smash that, I think has become even more important to me.
And when will that be touring, and the title?
Yeah, all the plug. Yeah, I'm
please.
Islamic. Don't panic. Please do come and see it. And I think although it's heavy subjects, it should be really exciting, accessible evening for most people. And ironically, it's for age 12 and plus. So maybe the next show has to be something for parents and for younger people. But I think most people will get a lot out of that show. It's very accessible. It's got breakdance battles in it, live music. Yeah, it's really exciting. It's been really well received. People come away laughing. I serve Persian tea and biscuits at the end of the show. I'm Islamic, don't panic. That's it. Check it out. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. It will be at the Playhouse, Leeds Playhouse, you know, and up and down the country, hopefully. So yeah, please come and check that out. I need an audience.
Great. So Bobak, thank you so much. It's been wonderful, and to Mina as well, our special guest today. It's fantastic just to hear your insights and thoughts, and just for me, we've kind of connected on and off over the years, and it's nice to catch up through this conversation. And I was smiling through the whole thing. It's just been wonderful just to hear what you've had to share with us, and hopefully this serves as a nice case study for PiPA and the importance of the work that they're doing as an example for people to engage with PiPA.
Yeah, it's a really important conversation. It's really interesting.
Well, actually, another question just occurred to me before we.
Yes, please. Yeah.
You spoke about some of the things that have been positive or could be positive in organisations. Have you had any experiences where organisations have not been as understanding as they could have in a situation, or, you know, certain, I don't know, the opposite from the ideal behaviours?
So I'm just used to like smashing through that. I just feel like probably, but I'm just trying to just like not even, it's like water off a duck's back. I'm trying to just move on from that. So nothing that's like think, I don't know.
Have you had schedule changes at the last minute? I don't know whether that's something that's affected you. I know it certainly has for some of the people working in theatre. There's been like changes to rehearsals at like very last minute.
Yeah. I mean, everything's up in the air, and with organisations generally, no one knows where they're at. You're going to phone someone that organisation doesn't exist anymore, or whether they're 3 years behind or whatever. So there's certainly a lot of things being up in the air. But because now, for the majority of the work I do, I'm the person making the schedule now, so I just make it around what I know is going to work. But yeah, I mean, some of it comes back to that question of finance as well, like the money being, if everyone's paid properly, then I can get the childcare and I can say yes to the job. But if there's a question mark about and like for instance, there's minimum equity rates as well, but actually I think people need to remember that is a minimum. So it just gets to the point where you can't, maybe not changes, but like jobs that aren't viable for me to take anymore, that I would quite like to take, or projects that I would quite like to be involved in. So I think that's negative.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you, Mina.
That was perfect. Yeah, you let Bob chat.
Everyone away.
Yeah, you're gonna say goodbye.
Should we do a couple of pictures? Can we kind of?
Yeah.
Social media and stuff, kinda, yeah.
That's it.
That's very good.